Hello and welcome. So I'm getting an error message. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't want to work. Okay. Hello. I am Dr. Nicole Smith with Anti-Gravity Wellness, and thank you so much for joining me today. I've been going live on a more regular basis. I'm just trying to increase the information that's out there about perimenopause and menopause and the services available at Anti-Gravity Wellness. This is a really big gap in care that has been brought to my attention. So that one's not wanting to work. Um, okay. So today we're going to talk more about what is perimenopause. You will notice that I'm looking from one screen to another because I have a couple of different cameras set up here to go to different platforms. So if you're joining me on Facebook and on YouTube, you will have a little bit of more visuals here with some slides. If you're on Instagram, no slides, just me. So, all right. So we're going to go ahead and get into this. And remember, these are only for information purposes only. I'm not here to diagnose or treat anyone over social media. That's not possible. But just to kind of give some more information so that you can be more empowered to speak to your doctor about this or find services such as mine if you're in Washington State, where I provide this service here, telemedicine. So, what is perimenopause? It is the transitional phase leading up to menopause. So, it can start in the 40s, but sometimes even earlier. And I've seen people as young as like in the 35 who can start to be symptomatic. And some of the things that happen, we're going to talk about as far as what are the symptoms, how do you even know that you might be in perimenopause? Um, on average, it can last anywhere from 4 to 8 years. It could last up to 10 years, so it just kind of depends. Everyone's a little bit different. It seems to be coming on sooner and sooner because there is so much going on with our health going into perimenopause. So we're not as healthy coming into it. So that seems to be exacerbating the symptoms of it. And as we actually address those underlying health issues, the symptoms get better, even without necessarily needing hormone replacement, which is good. If we can balance ourselves out naturally, that's what we like to do. As we get older, though, and transition into menopause, that's when, we do see those natural declines. And there'll be a separate talk about getting on hormone replacement, not just to alleviate symptoms, but also to help with long-term health issues that come about in that postmenopause range, like osteoporosis and heart disease and things like that. So, perimenopause is characterized by hormonal fluctuations leading to symptoms and changes in the menstrual cycle. One of the first things that we see is progesterone starts to go down, and this contributes to why that cycle starts to shorten. So, maybe you were regular 28 days, you could like set your watch to it or, around that range. And then all of a sudden, you notice like some months are shorter and your period comes sooner, and then some are a little bit longer. Maybe there's heavier periods. Maybe you're having some changes in the PMS or PMDD, which is the dysphoric disorder. And we're talking about like significant depression and things that you've never had to deal with before. And that can be early signs of perimenopause. And there's definitely phases, like there's early, there's mid, and there's late. And it is a spectrum. So not everyone follows the same path. It can be very different from person to person. So symptoms of perimenopause, I just went through some of them. We'll run through the gamut here. So weight gain around the belly, that's pretty typical. And this is because the estrogen levels start dropping, and the estrogen was telling the fat where to be stored, and it was telling it to be stored around like the hips and the legs. And as that goes down, the testosterone signal gets more amplified. Not that the testosterone goes up, but just relative to estrogen, it's higher. So you start to see those fat cells, even if your weight hasn't changed, all of a sudden the fat seems to accumulate in the belly region, which is, like the typical male area. Men tend to gain weight in their belly. And this is concerning not just for aesthetic reasons, but also because it contributes to what's called central obesity. And that type of obesity is very dangerous because it can accumulate around the internal organs. It's called visceral fat. And when that goes high, we see a very direct correlation between inflammation going up and risk for things like cardiovascular disease, metabolic disorders, and things like that, diabetes. Those things go up. So it is concerning for those reasons. Again, not just because we don't like how it looks, we want our flatter belly. Low libido is very common. Estrogen and testosterone both contribute to libido, as well as progesterone. Fatigue is very common. Hot flashes can occur. Again, not everyone suffers from these, and some people have very mild symptoms, and some people have very, very severe symptoms that are just debilitating. There can be trouble with sex, such as pain, dryness, even just difficulty reaching orgasm. Kind of doesn't necessarily have to go hand in hand with low libido. Sometimes there is a libido, but there's issues with that. Or there could be low libido and then there's really no issue once you get instigated. So there's a kind of, again, a spectrum as far as the sexual dysfunction is concerned. Frequent UTIs can become a problem as estrogen drops. The microbiome within the vaginal region starts to change, and that was protective. It was keeping the acidity to a certain point where that was helpful to prevent things like UTIs and yeast infections. And as the estrogen levels drop, changes that biome there, that microbiome down there. We have one there, just like we do in our gut. And that will start to lean towards a more pathogenic type of a situation where you have UTIs and yeast infections. Heart palpitations, this can definitely come about too. So I've had clients who come in, and that was one of their complaints is they have heart palpitations, and sometimes it's the thyroid. So we definitely want to rule that out. Make sure we look at the thyroid. But then the other thing that can be happening is that the estrogen levels, as they drop, it's amazing how these receptors are all over the body, and it can affect these things. So heart palpitations can be a symptom. Dry, thinning skin, again, low estrogen, thinning hair, thinning nails. That can be both, it could be thyroid. It can also just be sex hormones. It could be both. And they're all interconnected. You can definitely have more than just one issue going on, which is why we want to check everything and not just one thing, right? Trouble sleeping, either trouble getting to sleep or waking up at like 2 a.m. and you can't get back to sleep. Your brain is just like running. Really, really common. Gut issues, changes in the menstrual cycle, like I talked about, getting shorter, or having varied cycles when before it was pretty regular. If it was always irregular, then you may not notice any changes there. Worsening PMS or PMDD, any symptoms associated with PMS, premenstrual syndrome. So this includes, increased irritability, breast tenderness, swelling, edema, bloating, constipation, any of these types, varying liable emotions. Like you can be happy and you can be sad and like it's just like all over the place, and it can be kind of wild. And then PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and that's more severe. That's the like suicidal ideation. It can get to that level. Like the depression is just debilitating. And that can happen around the menstrual cycle, like, those days leading up to it or even during menstruation. Depression, anxiety, just throughout the whole time. And then other symptoms that are new and no one can explain. So we're really learning more about this. This is kind of a new area that really hasn't been studied very well, though obviously women have been going through perimenopause since there have been women. So, but as far as the research behind it and, what is actually attributed to perimenopause, what is, attributed to other things that are going on. But again, it's interconnected. So we can't necessarily just say it's all one thing or another. So we need to look at the whole system and address the whole person, right? So why do we even bother? Like, what's the importance of early care? So symptom management, early intervention helps in effectively managing symptoms before they become severe and significantly impact daily life. Addressing issues such as hot flashes, night sweats, and mood swings early can prevent them from escalating and improve overall quality of life. So a practical tip for this: women experiencing early signs of perimenopause should track their symptoms and seek medical advice to develop a tailored care plan. We also want to make sure that we're preventing long-term health issues. Perimenopause and then going into menopause can lead to long-term health issues such as increased risk for osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease, heart disease, and metabolic syndrome that can lead to like diabetes if left unmanaged. Early care focuses on preventive measures to reduce the risk of these conditions. Regular health screenings, including a bone mineral density test and cardiovascular assessments, should be part of routine care for women in perimenopause and into menopause. And then hormone balancing. Maintaining hormonal balance through early intervention can mitigate many of the adverse effects associated with perimenopause. This can include lifestyle modifications, nutritional support, and when appropriate, hormone replacement therapy, which includes estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone for some women. Everyone's different. So you need to discuss this with a healthcare provider, the potential benefits and risk of HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and other hormonal treatments or other options to find suitable care for you. Mental health support. Perimenopause can have a significant impact on mental health, leading to increased anxiety, depression, and mood swings. Early care can provide mental health support through counseling, therapy, and stress management techniques. So it's important for perimenopausal women to incorporate mindfulness practices, regular physical activity, which is as good as Prozac, by the way, and professional mental health support into daily routines. And then enhancing quality of life. By addressing symptoms early and managing them effectively, women can maintain a higher quality of life during perimenopause. This includes better sleep, more stable moods, and sustained energy levels. So it's important to develop a comprehensive self-care routine that includes proper nutrition, regular exercise, and adequate sleep to support overall well-being. It really can't be um, driven home enough that these are super important in order to make sure that you're taking care of the whole person. And that's something that I really drive home with my clients at Anti Gravity and even just on social media talking to people, that it's so important that we do prioritize ourselves and put ourselves first. And I completely understand how hard that is. Believe me, I really do. And this is why I have myself have hired somebody, like I hire coaches and things like that to keep me accountable, to push me to put myself first so that I can show up and be the best version of myself for everyone else. There's only so much that we can do before we run ourselves into a wall. And so as we get older, it becomes more and more important. We just can't ignore it anymore. So that is why I really drive that home again. So that is all I have for you guys today. I just wanted to talk more about perimenopause because it is a question that comes up quite a lot about what is this? What does this mean? Am I in perimenopause? I get that question a lot. How do I know I'm in perimenopause? Well, so there are lots of different things. So if you have any of those signs and symptoms, and let me go back to that real quick for you. Hold please. Um, so if you have any of those signs and symptoms, you might be in perimenopause. Uh, Going to your provider, getting full labs done. We want to check the thyroid. We want to check the adrenals. We want to check your basic labs. Look at your fasting insulin, things like that to see what's going on there. And see if there's any inflammation going on. What are your symptoms? Like it has to be a very comprehensive thing to figure out, what is going on and how can we help. And if you're having trouble finding help, which is a common complaint that I get, that's one of the services that is available at Anti Gravity. Even if you don't live in Washington State, I do have coaching services that are available. I can still help you with some things. I can't prescribe you, medications or anything like that if you're not a Washington State resident at this time. I will be working on getting, like my Oregon license and things like that. And eventually, as we expand, we'll have other providers that will be in other states that can help. So that is the dream of Anti Gravity, is to be able to really reach out and help more perimenopause and menopausal women who are not otherwise able to find the help that they need where they are at. So thank you so much for your time and attention today. If you have any questions and you'd like me to talk about anything in particular, don't hesitate to send me a message, post a comment, send me a DM, any of those things. I love hearing from you guys. So thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.